for this exciting webinar on blended learning in terms of disruptions and innovative approaches to blended learning from colleagues at CPUT, the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Joining us today is Daniela Gachago, Senior Lecturer in the Center for Innovative Educational Technology at CPUT. Bronwyn Swartz, who's a lecturer on the quality program in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering at CPUT, and Cheryl Belford, who is a lecturer on the Transportation Engineering program in the Department of Civil Engineering at CPUT. So please type in the text chat just so we can get a sense of who's in the room. Please let us know where you're from, what you're doing. Oh, we like to get a sense of the different countries and people joining us today. So please do so. Please type in the text chat. And I'm going to hand over to Daniela.
Okay, hi. Thanks, Nicola, for this introduction and for welcoming us. Can you all hear me well? Yeah? I see people are typing. Yes, loud and clear. Fantastic. So yeah, my name is Daniela and I work at CPUT in the Center for Innovative Education and Technology, as Nicola said, and I'm an academic staff developer. So we work with academic staff who want to introduce innovation in their teaching and learning. And I'm here with two of my colleagues who were part of a project that we ran last year, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that project in a while. But today what we're going to reflect on is on how the disruptions last year, so the Fees Must Fall protest, not only disrupted our academic project, but for some of the lecturers also became some sort of impetus to innovate and to explore blended learning a little bit more and the potential and the opportunities, but also the challenges that come with blended learning. So this seminar is divided into two parts. And today we are going to focus more on the innovation bit and what the Fees Must Fall made these two lectures that I brought with me today do in their teaching and learning. And then tomorrow we'll talk about the ethics of it. So while we will show how we innovated last year, it also brought up a lot of questions for us around the ethics of doing blended learning in times of student protest and Fees Must Fall. So tomorrow we'll focus then, I will introduce, sorry, just 1 second to go to the overview. So today we'll talk about blended learning, what it is at CPUT, how lecturers responded to the Fees Must Fall movement through blended learning interventions. We'll have the two case studies from Bronwyn and Cheryl, both in the Faculty of Engineering at CPUT. And that's where we'll end the conversation today. And then tomorrow we'll move into the ethical implications. I will introduce the ethics of KF Tronto, which we found quite an interesting framework to think about ethics and ethical practices in our context. Yes, I can see Nicola just asked a question whether you have looked at Bronwyn's and Cheryl's videos. We shared their links this morning, which might have been a little bit late for all of you to have a look, but there's still time. Both Cheryl and Bronwyn will summarize the videos today, and then you can have a look at those videos after the session, and we can use those videos as a start of a conversation tomorrow. I hope you'll all make the session tomorrow as well. Are there any questions so far about the overview, the structure of the presentation, or is everyone fine? Looks like everybody's okay. Yeah. Nicola, if there are any questions, we will check, we'll look that up. It's fine. Cool. So blended learning. There are many definitions of blended learning in the literature. For us, when we talk about blended learning, it's basically blending the best teaching methods in a face-to-face interaction and in an online learning space. So we for us, it always involves a mix of face-to-face and online learning. So we don't talk about purely distance education when we talk about blended learning, but we talk about enhancing, adding to the traditional on-campus face-to-face teaching, using technology for all sorts of things to accommodate a variety of learning experiences, both on and off campus, with a varying amount of distance between learners and lecturers. We are a contact institution, although there are some projects that are looking into offering proper distance education courses. Most of our teaching is on campus, face to face, with an enhancement of the teaching and learning context through technology. And when we talk about blended learning, it should, we're looking at all sorts of things. We're looking at how to offer content beyond the classroom, what kind of activities are best done in the classroom, outside the classroom, and how can technology support these activities? How do we communicate with our students in class and outside the class, and how can we use technology? How can we support student collaboration in class, outside class? And also, and that's maybe the most tricky one, how can we assess student learning both in class and outside class? As I said before, one of the interesting experiences, or one of the things that made us think more about blended learning and the ethics of blended learning was the student disruptions last year, the protests, both in 2015, but especially in 2016, caused or found us engaging a lot more with lecturers' requests or questions or demands for advice on blended learning. So there seemed to have been an idea, and often it was framed by the institution, that we have to stop the academic project because of the student protest, but somehow, if lecturer wanted, they could continue teaching online using technology. So there was this expectation that you could, if you wanted to, continue your teaching and learning using the learning management system or any other technology that you thought your students would be able to access. I must also say that there wasn't a lot of support, or there wasn't a lot of strategic rollout of blended learning or online learning. It was quite ad hoc. So we were faced with these disruptions. We were faced with campus closure, and suddenly there was this open space of how could we continue teaching and learning using technology. And what we saw, that a lot of lecturers came back to us and said, let's try using technology. Let's see how students respond. So it wasn't a very planned or strategic way of going about it. It was more like quite panicky. What shall we do? How can we do this quickly? And in general, what we saw, that suddenly WhatsApp became the tool of communication with students, setting up groups to communicate quickly, to change venues, to update students about what was happening. But a lot of lecturers also started thinking about how to continue teaching, how to create content online through screencasts or podcasts, videos shared on the LMS, but also on other platforms if they found that the LMS was difficult for students to access. A lot of lecturers also allow students to, for example, record presentation or group work, and to share those recorded presentations via WhatsApp or the LMS as a final project to be assessed by the lecturer. And also what a lot of lecturers came to us asking were things around how we take assessment online, how can we do MCQs, and what was really interesting, that suddenly there was a lot of interest in take-home exams. So lecturers were wondering how could they can't assess students in class, how would they go about offering those exams in a different way off campus. And for many that meant changing their assessment structure into a take-home exam. So those were the kind of questions that came to us. And I think we were not the only ones to see that, especially the learning management system suddenly seemed to boom. The usage you can see here. This is data from our institutional learning management system. You can see by May, that was just before the mid-year exams. We had about 900 courses on Blackboard. In December, about double as much, which is more or less what is to be expected. You can also see that the assessments in May were about 6.5 and about double as much by the end of the year. But where it becomes interesting is that the students that actually were enrolled in these assessments were about 53,000 at the middle of the year, and that increased exponentially to the end of the year. We nearly had 400 students enrolled in any type of assessment on Blackboard, and multiple students can be enrolled in multiple assessment. We have about 40,000 students at CPUT. You can see that on average, then that means that a student was on average enrolled in about 10 forms of online assessment on Blackboard. And institutions responded in different ways. One of the ways we responded, and thanks to colleagues from UCT who put a lot of effort and work in developing guides for online learning, online teaching, learning, and assessment, and shared that under a Creative Commons license. And I remember this was shared on a Monday. By Wednesday, we took these documents and adapted them for CPUT. Because it was shared on the Creative Commons license, this was quite easy. And it took us two days basically to adapt them for our own context, which is, I think, one of my favorite examples of how open educational resources can really respond quickly to specific needs. So there were these guides online, because remember, we were also not on campus. So we worked from home or from coffee shops. Our colleagues work from home, from coffee shops, from wherever. So all these happened now in an online space. Gabriel, that's a very interesting question. We'll get there. Not all students accepted online teaching, because remember, the fees must fall. That was a student-led protest, and the disruption of the academic project was something that the students wanted. So not all students accepted online teaching. So I'm going to talk about this just now. So the two lectures that are here with me today were both part of our Open Educational Resource project last year. They were selected as Open Educational Pilots. The OER project is an institutional research project that has been running since 2015. It started with a big surveying of open practices of staff and students, and moved then into this pilot phase. So last year we selected 8 pilots, and each of these pilots got a little bit of money, not a lot, but a little bit, to develop open educational resources. And being part of this project also meant that we met quite regularly over the course of 6 months. I think we met at least every month, once or twice, as a community of practice to share experiences. So as being part of this project meant that the lecturers thought quite deeply and strategically about how to use open educational resources in their teaching and learning. And both lecturers that are here with me, what they decided to develop as part of their project are screencasts. So long before the student protest erupted, they had already started thinking about offering alternative ways of contents to their students. These are all our pilots, and the two ladies who are here with me are the first two, Cheryl and Bronwyn, sitting next to me and ready to go. So this was just a very brief introduction into blended learning and the CPUT and what happened in the context of the Fees Must Fall last year. And now I want to hand over to Bronwyn and Cheryl to introduce their case studies.
Hello everyone, I'm Bronwyn, and And I'm a lecturer at the Department of, well, Daniela's actually introduced me already, said what I do. For those that have watched the screencast that I made, thank you for doing that. Although, please forgive me, I'm going to say ahead of time, please forgive me because I'm going to repeat a lot of what is actually on the screencast that I made. I lecture statistics and I lecture research methodology to predominantly BTech level students. And last year during Fees Must Fall, I also had a group of first year students. When I started lecturing in 2012, we used absolutely no educational technology. It was basically your textbooks and your class notes. Email was as far as we went when it came to using anything in terms of electronics for teaching. However, in 2013, I landed up with a class of 220, I think it was 226 stat students. The lecturer had a heart attack, unfortunately, and his class and my class were combined. And the lecture was actually too small to accommodate all the students. But at the same time, I mean, we're all in the business of education. You know that 226 students is a massive class. You spend 3 weeks marking just one homework. Never mind, I literally spent about an hour after class having to answer questions and queries. And I remember calling my boss and telling him, my boss's name is Andre, and I remember telling Andre, I can't work harder. I can't put more hours in. I've got to find a way to work smarter. And that's when I realized that Blackboard was my answer. Blackboard is our learner management system. And I started to slowly use Blackboard. I used it, I realized I could use it for discussions, so that would cut down the time that we would spend after class. And then also for my marking for homeworks. And slowly, well, that after that class of 220 students, after that cohort had graduated, I then started just doing more stuff on Blackboard the following year. I started developing Blackboard, and for my own, actually to improve my own practice as a lecturer, I was watching Khan's Academy videos. And I remember watching these Khan's Academy videos and thinking, this is amazing. This is amazing stuff. I want to do this. And so I started playing around on the learner management system. And I experimented with different techniques with blended learning. So I would give the students like a bit of an assignment in class, and then we'd go back on the discussion board between classes and we'd talk about things. The discussion boards were fantastic, but what I also discovered was equally great was dividing the students into groups and doing group work online. That was also really, really, really beneficial. And the students were able to interact with each other more than what they actually did in class because they felt more comfortable. Some of them felt more comfortable using that. And of course, it's driven by the lecturer. The students won't do it by themselves. So you as a lecturer, you've got to, make incentives available and encourage them, just actively encourage them to participate. Then in 2015, that was when Fees Must Fall, we were hit with Fees Must Fall for the first time. And that wasn't as bad as last year. But because I'd already started working on, done a lot of stuff on Blackboard, I was comfortable enough to do more. And I was comfortable enough to incentives in terms of I'd have a graded discussion. So the grades didn't amount to much. It was maybe 2% of the final year mark. But I would tell them, look, I would post a question and I would ask the students to respond as long as it's anything meaningful and relevant to the topic, then they would get a 2% towards the year mark. Those were the kinds of incentives. It would be maybe a little bit less homework if uh, if they had 5 homeworks. If they did 4 homeworks online, then that would, I'd use marks. I really would use marks or time as incentives. Does that answer the question? Yes, it does. They were. They were. It was like discovering a new toy. I experienced it as well. Everyone, well, not everyone, but everyone, no, I'm repeating myself. People like Facebook. And Blackboard really was like the academic version of Facebook. And I would just sell it. I would just actively market it in class. We don't see. I I would actively market it in class. We yeah, I don't know what else. And I'd get the students working in a group. I'd get the students, if I asked them to work in a group, the other group members would encourage. They'd encourage each other, and those that were stronger would help those that were less eager to get involved. I'm going to speak. Yeah, I'm going to speak a bit about Fees Must Fall the first time. We were pretty stunned when that happened. And how did you get? Uh, Support is it's difficult. It didn't support me as in give me any resources or time. He basically wanted our students to pass. And I told him, I sold it to him, this is a way for me to get our students to pass, to get our students to be involved and to learn. And so they basically just let me do what I needed to do. And in the department, I've spoken a bit about my experiences. I've assisted some of the lecturers, but I don't think that there's anyone that is quite as active as I am. So that is work in progress. That really is work in progress. And I think we're going to one just needs to continue trying to champion it. So the first time I then started using WhatsApp because there was no other alternative. We needed to communicate quickly. And so that's what we did, in addition to using Blackboard. But having gone through that experience, it just made me feel bolder and more courageous. And I then had my first online exams after the first Fees Must Fall in March of last year, which was also a massive success. And it saved me a lot of time, it saved me a lot of effort, and you build up a library of things that you can use. So the exams that I did last year now serves as homework for the next years, And then 2016's Fees Must Fall was a big one. That was a big one. And that one started even earlier. Did you have students who supported? Yes, I did. I did. I'll discuss that in a little bit, Tony. The Fees Must Fall in 2016 started earlier than the previous year, and I'd only gotten through 70% of the work, and so it was a matter of pulling out all the stops. And I then started screencasting like nothing I've ever done before. I literally spent most of my time screencasting to prepare these lessons for the students, but I found that Blackboard was not enough. The students didn't have internet. That was the biggest at CPUT. We aren't the most advanced. The socioeconomic circumstances, data is a problem. It really is a problem. And so to overcome that challenge, I tried Google Drive, but not much more success. And so then we went on to YouTube. I actually did posted things on YouTube, and the response that I got from the students working using WhatsApp as a form of communication and YouTube to actually present my lessons, it was amazing. I really got such a positive response from the students. There were students, Tony, that I could actually see they were absent. There were some students that were absent, but as the time got closer to the exam, I was surprised how students then started realizing that there would be impacts for them as well if they didn't write the exam. CPUT then decided to actually split the exams. We had an exam the end of the year, but students were given the option to write an exam the beginning of the year, the beginning of 2017 as well. And I could see their conversations with each other, being on the YouTube, not the YouTube, I beg your pardon, being on the WhatsApp group as well. And they'd actually, in their conversations with each other, I could actually see how the students were telling each other, listen guys, let's just get this over and done with. The material is available for us. We can support each other. And I think that some of the students then decided to also just get on with it. I don't know if that answers your question. And that's just because the students were supporting each other, and I suppose I was also there in the background supporting too. And then when the two classes that I had that wrote exams, my BTEC students, all of them wrote exams in December. Was it December or November? All of them wanted to finish the exams the end of the year. There's one person that actually was sick, and all of those that wrote pass. And I don't want to say it's only because of the online, but it means that using the screencast as a medium, it didn't place the students at a disadvantage. And the first year students, the pass rate for first year students is traditionally, I'm speaking under correction, about 60%, I think. And I think I got something close to 70%. The first year class, there were more students that opted. There were 5 students that opted to write in January. But in general, and this is just my opinion, I didn't investigate this with scientific rigor. But in general, I think that more of my students were prepared and wrote. I had less students than the colleagues in my department who wrote in January. More of my students were prepared, and I firmly believe that is because of using blended learning and using technology. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to hand over to my colleague Cheryl. Thank you very much, guys.
Hi, everybody. It's Cheryl speaking. Bronwyn covered so much of what I could say, but there was an earlier question about, what encouraged students to embrace the experience, and I'm going to talk from my experience and answer that question just to start off with. I think for me, it became about students needed to see that they could access the material and get on with it. And you can just watch my video to get clarity on this point and everything that you really want to ask me about. But effectively, Blackboard didn't work for too many people. It just didn't work because it was data consumptive and they needed to get access to data, etc., etc. So WhatsApp was the predominant sort of conduit for learning, and the material took the form of PDF. So I produced all my videos from PowerPoint. I PDF my PowerPoint, and then, if necessary, either transferred the audio clip using some Contagia technology, or eventually just off the cuff, putting it back on. And that worked so well. That was, I think, the key ingredient. And then with FMF, we had security issues. So basically, we had a group portal that was already institutionally established with registration. But what I would do is, not to make myself or the students a target, I would encourage them to send me questions independently. And I would then respond on the group portal. So there was no connection to the student in any way. And I would collate emails, WhatsApps, I don't know, thoughts, if you will, into the Blackboard blog, which I also then PDF'd and circulated. So nothing was really planned. Everything I did was in the moment. It was a reaction, and it was proportional to where I was at the time. So, okay, I can talk about a lot of things, but I think that the secret to becoming a practitioner, an open practitioner in difficult circumstances, is to be as competent in your tools as possible. So, for example, you always need to be able to teach in whatever mediums are available to you. So for example, your technological competence needs to be there. So you have Blackboard, you need to know how to use it. Google Drive, WhatsApp, PowerPoint, Camtasia. I mean, these were all my tools. Scribing. I've even forgotten some of them because, you know, I forget what I've used yesterday if I'm not using it today, because this is how quickly my mediums have changed. But the point is, if I needed to use it, I could. Right now, this minute. I was in a unique opportunity where I had all this data surrounding me. I had a privilege of being able to put a survey in place on Blackboard. I had extensive marks that I could pull on and review. And I also had tracking data because Blackboard just enables all these things to happen. So I did just that. And in the video, I show you that the worst response rate was 80%. But this is all due to, of course, the response on WhatsApp. I talked to the marks, and I've reflected extensively on it, even comparing it, doing a trend analysis to the last 3 semesters, where all the assessments was basically the same. In fact, it was fantastic what I realized from that comparison, in that there is absolute consistency in my pedagogy with regard to the smaller assessments and the larger FISA. The students performed slightly better, individually speaking, but overarchingly there was similarity, consistency, and there was a strength there. So that made me feel really cool because, you know, my pedagogy wasn't under the spotlight anymore. I mean, I'm being a consistent practitioner. With regard to the survey, you can see for yourself, everybody loved what I was doing. But they loved it because it was working. Obviously, there were challenges. Some people point blank refused to do the work. They had a lot to say in the survey, but it all came down to access more than anything else. And I do talk to that in the video. And then finally, my reflections. So I've had like 5 months to reflect on that experience. The bottom line is I'm still an open practitioner. I'm not anything else. In fact, I'm only an open practitioner now. So all the material I created during FMF was used this semester. And then I had to do more. I had to make more open videos because the students were actively learning when they're engaging with that material. And quite frankly, they didn't want to be in class. They wanted to be in front of the PC. So I shifted my classroom to a computer lab, and I learned how to close off their PCs using some software and focus them on the projection screen in front, and then to quickly devise an assessment where they would have to reflect on the material, so on and so forth. And then, of course, they started working faster and I could keep up, and I had to stay up nights and create additional material. But effectively, they had a very deep engagement this semester, even though they had a program that was about 2/3, which was one of the fallouts of having FMF from last semester to into this semester. But long story short, I'm very impressed with students and how they respond to things that are generated out of technology. And so the 4 R's of open practice: revisit, revise, reuse. It is the absolute truth. You cannot generate perfection on the first try, and your students become the conduit for seeing the attributes of open practice. So they will absolutely find all the problems. You will revise, you will reissue multiple times. This is not about perfection. This is about developing product that is going to get the job done without compromising the outcomes. If anything, it's to achieve the outcomes even better than before. And the reason why the students latch onto it, because it allows them an opportunity to engage deeply on their own time and in their own way. And quite frankly, all you are is an encyclopedia that they choose to use when they feel like it. So you just hang around class like a bad smell, quite frankly. So I love that. I adore it, because when a student comes to me with a question, it's a real question. It has meaning. It's worthy of, tertiary education. So yeah, I've got a more impressive relationship with my students now because we're engaging in the way that we meant to. Okay, I'm starting to ramble. I'm thinking that I think I've got the whole thing now. Yeah, and I'm certain that that long video that I made will more than adequately, just and concisely capture the journey. So I think I'm going to bow out now if there's not any more questions.
Hi, so this is me again, Daniela. Thanks so much to Cheryl and Bronwyn for their quick summaries of what they did last year. So what I think what became quite clear when we were looking at lectures like Bronwyn and Cheryl, but also others, that because of the fees must fall, this is a slide that I took of Catherine Cronin's presentation, which she did for Emerge, I think 2 weeks ago, which I really like because it shows that what the fees must fall made us do is to think beyond the very bounded spaces that we're usually thinking in. So our physical spaces are bounded, but also our learning management system is also bounded. And what happened for a lot of lecturers who responded to the fees must fall movement by using more technology is that they were somehow pushed into open online spaces. So from moving beyond the learning management system to look at offering as many other alternatives to content, to communicate, to collaborate outside these very bounded institutional spaces. And in that open online space, a lot of things happen. So on one hand side, positive things happen. So students could access, students could continue with their teaching and learning. Students could finish the program, many at least. But there were also a lot of questions that came up because the moment you step out of the learning management system, that issues of data, issues of access, issues of resources, of digital literacies come in. And those are questions that, for me, started a lot of, thinking and conversations and debate around the ethics of doing this, especially in the context of fees must fall. So on one hand side, well, the fees must fall became a big push for us to think and to push the boundaries in terms of blended learning and open educational practices. Offering blended learning as a response to fees must fall is the exact thing that the students are actually telling us or have been starting the protest for. It's all about access to resources. It's all about inequalities. It's all about unequal access to resources within the higher education learning space. So offering something that advantages even more those who have becomes for me a big ethical question mark. So while looking at people like Bronwyn and Cheryl, the disruption became a positive trigger to more openness, to use technology even more and better, and they can show positive results. Their students have done well, the students accepted what they were doing. It was definitely easier for them because they had already started thinking about blended learning way before the disruption happened, and they had prepared themselves and the students for a potential disruption, not knowing that the disruption would happen because of their involvement in the OER project. But across the institution, what we could see is that whether or not to engage in blended learning during the fees must fall was a very personal decision. It was, although the institution provided some sort of guidelines and some sort of direction, it was up to the lecturer to decide what to do. And some lecturer went and asked students what they wanted, and in many cases the students said, no, there's no way we can continue the academic project, blended learning, yes or no. But it became a personal and an ethical decision for the lecturers on whether to continue or not. So that's a conversation that we found did not happen at that time. And that's this idea that, yes, technically we can do all those things. And yes, technically it worked in many ways and it pushed the boundaries and we could see a lot of innovation happening. But what about the ethics? And this is where I want to stop because we need to have something left for tomorrow's seminar. And we have already spoken for 45 minutes. And I'm sure there are lots of questions from the audience. But what I want to focus tomorrow is to look at these innovative practices through an ethics of care lens. So over to you. Do you have any questions, any comments, any feedback? How did you respond for the South African participants? How did you respond to the fees must fall? Or what are the kind of questions that came up for you?
Well, that's been so enlightening. Thank you, Daniela. And Cheryl and Bronwyn, both for typing their questions.
That's been so enlightening. Thank you, Daniela and Cheryl and Bronwyn.
I know it was a tough situation, and we really needed time to reflect.
I know it was a tough situation.
I think seeing
and we
in
really
a broader
needed time to reflect.
Yes, Cheryl.
I think see things in a broader perspective. Yes, Cheryl. I know Cheryl wants to say something.
I honestly, my reflection is that I was just very privileged. I mean, I enjoy having the internet at home and so on and so forth. But I'm a bit of a diehard, you know. I just don't like to accept things that are not finished in class. So my students received all of the assessments back, but it was all in e-format, and I PDF comments only where there was error. I didn't talk to what they got right. I talked to what they got wrong, because ultimately, if you think about it in a design context, you need to know where your error is. So there's so much that I can say that I did, but it only has meaning if you put yourself in that space, you know, where you recognize that we need to teach a lot in a short space. So we need to reduce the cognitive load in class and ask students to do as much as possible outside of the classroom, so that when they come into the classroom, the exchange is meaningful, even more so than during FMF. And I just wanted to make that statement and say it's now post FMF. Nothing has actually changed, because you know we live in an environment that potentially is threatened by so many things. So I think that when you come out of FMF or anything like that, where you know learning is a right, you know education is a right, you have the right to education, but you need to recognize that it's so precious. So as a facilitator of learning, I think that our pedagogy, although new, is also old in that we have a responsibility to deliver the curriculum in a manner that is transparent. So students must be familiar with your pedagogy, not surprised by it. And they should know that in the event if you're not available, i.e. sick, or it's FMF time, or whatever the case may be, they should know where to go to. And that is kind of my stance going forward. I'm completely transparent with my pedagogy, and anything I make, I put it on my Google Drive for my subject of course, and I'll be starting a blog that should be fun. I WhatsApp it. Whether they want it or not is irrelevant. They need to know that.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, sorry, folks. I hope we're not getting some feedback now. Is it clear? Is it all right? Just checking because we had both mics on. Okay, cool. Yes, folks, please, the South African lecturers who might be joining us, how did you respond during Fees Must Fall? Is there any, perhaps you tried some similar practices? And for folks outside SA, have you perhaps been in a similar situation where contextual situations forced you to innovate? And then I'm also wondering, it might be useful to discuss what does innovation with blended learning mean? A lot of people think innovation means the new and the novel and the latest tech. Daniela, what does innovating with blended learning mean to you?
You put me on the spot here, Nicola. I think what's interesting for me is to see when people are forced to do something, the kind of energy that gets released, and the kind of avenues or channels or gaps that people find, and also how quickly they realize what's working and what's not working. So for me, innovating is always to do with iterative, reflective, cyclic thinking about and doing new things. So what we found when we were talking to lecturers last year about their responses to the Fees Must Fall, that it was very much a trial and error. We're just trying things out and seeing what works and what students tell us. So there's this very close listening to students and to their feedback. So there's awareness that what we are doing is not 100% okay, and not automatically accepted, and not automatically authorized, because we are the lecturers. So the hierarchy and the authority got a bit challenged, and so it became a lot more. It became a conversation between lecturers and students as to what works and what doesn't work, and how can we do things better, and how can we offer as much alternatives to accessing content or to sharing content or to submitting assignments or projects as possible. So it was this togetherness, this collective thinking and negotiating practices that work.
Okay, I'm Cheryl's back on, and she's responding to the question about what happened to those students who didn't engage online during FMF. Well, FMF came to an end, and we had students who couldn't because they just didn't have any technology, including phones, and we had students who just chose not to because they chose not to. They resumed the academic project when classes resumed. And surprisingly enough, I hung around in the formalized and timetabled classes, but no one used me because the word had got out that they could go online and do the business. And if they needed me, I was there, but no one used me. So I, uh, I can honestly say that students did know, and students always know because they always talk to each other. And WhatsApp has not helped with that. So if you hear a rumor, it's because of WhatsApp. And so students can never say they don't know. If they say they don't know, it's just because they didn't check their portals. So in my case, I can honestly say that I can account for every student. And I think my ratio was 25 students out of 130 something who were sort of post FMF, and they did the business. They never used me. It was as if we had FMF without FMF, if you will. And I just wanted to say that it's actually so interesting that they never came to me. It was as if my class became the one that could finish the fastest, and then they could use the additional time to supplement other classes. So I'm just going to leave that response there.
I see there's an interesting question here about what happened to students with special needs. Perhaps you had some special needs. I know that at UCT there was a lecturer who it was actually accommodating students with a student with special needs. So, oh well, actually, I can do this with the rest of my students. I can try making podcasts and it could be useful to them as well. Now, Cheryl, you want to say something about that as well? Daniela? Sorry, can I hand over to Cheryl?
I really had a rainbow nation in my class. I mean, I don't even question it. I know I'm going to get the rainbow nation because I'm at the exit level. And, in the civil engineering industry, we the rainbow nation. It's a very lucrative industry. So we always have the highest number of intake and graduates in our institutions. So absolutely, we get students with disabilities. And let me tell you, I've lost count. The question is, how willing are you to teach, to facilitate learning? And that's what it comes down to. So I had a student who read lips. I mean, this is amazing to me because everybody sees that I'm mumbling in class. So he and I did the audio clip thing, and we observed all the rules of security. So he would WhatsApp me independently. I'd audio clip, but of course I'd paste it on the class portal. So no one knew it was him, but we did. Me and he did. And then I had another student who had very poor vision. I mean, he had to sit right in front in class. So, of course, the PDFs served him so well. And he was very blessed because he had family who was willing to be a conduit for him, and just reading material and things like that. So when I did my PowerPoints for him, font size as big as you can go. So he had extended slides on his PowerPoint. But I didn't mind. I had nothing else to do. So I hope that answers the question about students with special needs. It's about how willing you are as an individual to extend yourself. I have a son with special needs, and I'm always extending myself for him. So no biggie. Okay.
Well, thanks a lot. I think that was a very interesting presentation for us. I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, Gabriel, what did you do to students who did not have the technology? I mean, good question. All those are questions that go into the ethics of offering this. And I would like to also keep some of these questions for tomorrow. I hope, I'm very conscious of time. We have 5 minutes left. And I've been told to wrap up. I'd like to know by show of hand, can they show hand, how many of you are planning to come tomorrow, to join us again tomorrow? Okay, Alice, Ray, Gabriel, Antonio, Irene, Kat. Oh, fantastic. So it's quite a number of fantastic. That's really great, because it would be really nice to continue this conversation tomorrow. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a thinking tool with the Ethics of Care framework, which allows a quite nice way of looking at different dimensions of ethics and what could be an ethical practice. And then, because you've heard Bronwyn's and Cheryl's presentations, and we'll share the videos, and if you haven't watched them, you can watch them again. Those would be some very good case studies to apply the framework to. But if you have examples, it would be great if you could bring your own examples as well to look through the ethics of care practice at those examples, and to see what we could deduct from that or not. Any questions? Any last questions before we go?
Thank you very, very much, Daniela and Bronwyn and Cheryl. It was a really exciting exciting session, and yeah, indeed, we really look forward to discussing ethics of care tomorrow. I think, yeah, these questions around access are so important. We've also posted a link to. We'll post the link to the recording for today's session in our Facebook page and on the Emerge Africa YouTube channel. There also, please remember, if you didn't get a chance to watch Cheryl and Bronwyn's videos, there is a playlist link to both of these on our Facebook page. So please make sure you watch both of those before tomorrow. And as Daniela said, feel free to share your stories about blended learning and things where you think the ethics of care framework might pop up. Maybe you even want to share examples of innovative learning in your context, and perhaps you have a screencast or a video you can share. If you do, feel free to share it in the Facebook event page. Sorry, the link. Cheryl just wants to say something quickly.
I'm just saying, oh my word. Oh well, let's just take that with a pinch of salt. I'm just saying, if anyone has already got the post or the link to Ethics of Care framework, just to post it. It'll just save us a couple of seconds there. You know, time is the most expensive currency. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Cheryl, and we look forward to having you all join us tomorrow. Okay, bye everyone. Thanks for joining us.